Good evening and salutations, my YNR fans. I know I've been going for a hot minute. And I left during a time where the storyline was getting crazy. But like I said in my last review, I'm not gonna be, I wasn't gonna be like going forever or anything like that. It just every now and then stuff gets kind of crazy with trying to do all four of them, and it coming out super late, and I had to wake up super early. But I'm definitely gonna sit there and try to do these as much as possible whenever I can, have some extra time to do it. Um, I'm gonna be completely honest. This episode, there was a one second. There was some stuff. Well, I'm gonna be honest. It was really only one storyline that actually worked in this episode, and then the other two was just kind of like. Now, I'm gonna talk about the stuff that didn't work for me, and I'm just sitting there trying to think about how am I going to go about it without being so flippant about, um, this Ray death storyline. I need people to understand something, and this is just where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from, the last, times I was sitting there watching him, he wasn't really doing much. He wasn't really doing much at all. I mean, granted, Sharon wasn't really doing that much either, and then there's times where there's characters just kind of there to be there. I'm pretty sure, like, before I start watching the show, I'm pretty sure you had some probably great and epic storylines. Just when I came on the scene, it was kind of, And from what I heard, he was leaving the show anyway. Now I don't know if this was his choice or was it the show's choice, but he was leaving the show regardless. And from what I can understand, and maybe it's just me personally, I feel like if his character was really that important, they just would have found a way to recast him. But they just killed him off completely. Like, no, we're not just taking the character off, I mean the actor off. No, we're taking this whole character off, just done so. So, when I'm sitting there talking about, well, let's be honest, just how boring these scenes were to me personally, I'm not sitting there saying like okay, even though that this is a show, fictional characters and stuff like that, I don't take things like car crashes and people dying, anything like I'm not. How do I say that? I feel like I don't want to dig myself in the hole. My point is that regardless if it's real life or if it's like a TV show, it's certain things you just don't say because it just comes across as kind of cruel and just insensitive. And I know there's people that probably really like Ray as a character and stuff like that. It's just me personally, these scenes were boring. Like when um Chance Nabby came over, they was talking about him, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's heartbreaking for her to lose a husband. That definitely is. Um, and again, I don't know what is it with this show. I say this because I'm not the only person that feels like this show could be better than what it is, and that this is another show where it feels like it's imbalanced. Like I always sit there and say like GH can be imbalanced at times, but they found a way to kind of make it work a little bit. If you watch GH, I'm gonna get more into that. But my point is that there's a lot of times where they have shows where it's just imbalanced, and I feel like GH is one of them. I feel like YNR is another one. You look at Tessa Mariah, and it's like every time they're on screen, I'm just like, now again. I'm pretty sure they were doing some great storylines. I heard Mariah got captured, and there was all this other stuff with these kidnappers and stuff. And I'm pretty sure that was crazy and really interesting. Now, the stuff that I've seen is boring as hell. Um, and that's pretty much was the majority of their stuff. And they were trying to decide on what to do with Ray's body, if he should be buried in Genoa City or should be buried in Miami. And I think one of the relatives was like, "Oh, I want him to be buried out there because of X, Y, and Z," and they felt really strongly about it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if that was the mom or the sister or whatever. But I guess the only person, because Ray didn't have any children, and the only person that was sort of like a child, or maybe it was Faith or somebody. I don't know. My point is that he had people that loved him in Genoa City. And I don't know exactly how the conversation was going, but I kind of felt like before you just decide that you want to bury him out there in Miami, just kind of remember that he had people that loved him in Genoa City also. Long story short, um, Sharon and Nick kind of came to the conclusion that he was really happy whenever he went out there. He was a lot more lighter and happier and not dealing with cold and snow weather. So, it was like, let's have him buried out there, and that's pretty much what they wound up doing. Tess and Mariah wasn't even too sure if they should do the wedding because, um, you know, the whole, well, like her mom, having to bury her husband was kind of like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But Noah was like, oh, I think you should be doing this because of X, Y, and Z. Um, I think the point of it was what really made them what really made them listen to Noah was the fact that, that marriage was, not just doing it for them, but also doing it for Sharon, to have her daughter walk down the aisle and celebrate happiness and love and things of that nature. And, I guess if you look into a lot more deeper, you know, stuff like that can happen at any point in time. And, the most important thing is to sit there and try to find happiness wherever you can for as long as you can because you just don't know. Um, I don't know if that was the overall message, but I feel like that's what I took from it. And it's one of those unfortunate things where it's like, you always hear, oh well, smile because you never know what's gonna happen tomorrow, or don't miss an opportunity to sit there and find, things of that nature. It's like we take this stuff for granted until unfortunately things like that happen. And then it makes us really sit there and think like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't sit there and take life and this, that, and for granted. But it's like, why do things like that have to inspire that? You know, it's sort of the same things where when people actually go to funerals and stuff like that. It's like, man, we should really hang out. And unfortunately, we're seeing each other under really terrible circumstances. And it's like, why did that have to happen for us to sit there and spend time with each other? For us to sit there and call one another. You know. But I guess if you're gonna sit, if something like that does happen, and you have to take anything positive away from it, I think that's kind of the way to go. Now let's talk about Diane. So after Jack and Phyllis are talking about Ashlyn and Victoria being okay, and Ray died, like instantly. He didn't suffer or anything like that. Um, After they talk about that, they talk about Diane, the fact that she's in Genoa City, even though that, Jack was like, give me a chance to talk to Kyle to break the news before you just start barging on in. But of course, she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to do that, and she decided to get residence in her hotel. Now, I think some people could sit there and be like, well, why didn't you just not kick her out? Well, to keep an eye on her. And that's pretty much what they did. Diane's upstairs thinking about the conversation with Jack. She's like, I don't feel like waiting, and I'm just like she spazzes out, and she tries to leave, and they're like, no, you gotta stay here. We didn't even want you here, and you gotta stay here until we're able to sit there and break the news before you're spotted and yada yada yada. Now I'm looking at this whole thing, and I'm like, what is your plan if she doesn't want to stay? Is there going to be two big bodies just in the way to make sure? Like, what is your fallback plan if she doesn't want to do what you say? Like, were you just going to hold up there against her will? Now, Nikki does come in, and Phyllis rushes her upstairs, and she's all like, "Oh!" Even before she was like, "Hey, I can give you a massage. I mean, I can get somebody to give you a massage. I could why the hell would Phyllis give her a massage? I can, give you some Chardonnay, give you some wine and stuff like that. The minute she gets upstairs, she's like, yeah, I'm not doing none of that. Really? Really? And she's all like, well, I can tie you to the chair. I can handcuff you. I can make sure you don't leave. I'm like, so is she your prisoner now? I don't really understand. And of course, Diane's like, well, listen, it's between me and Jack. But it's really not because Kyle is her son-in-law. Summer is her daughter, and so what affects him affects her, and so she's like, yeah, like it or not, I'm in this. Now, Nikki is like, who's that woman you was sitting there? Who's that woman that you was sitting there trying to rush upstairs? And it's like, why does it matter? I just didn't understand why she was honing in so hard on wondering who was the woman that they were trying to get upstairs. Like, why does that matter? You came here. She came there for Newman business, so and then after Jack is they're asking how Victoria and Ashlyn's doing, and that is something else that I'm gonna sit there and probably, if I can remember, try to talk about it towards the end. They talk about that, but now at this point, Nikki's like, no, I want to know who you was sitting there hiding. I want to know. I want to know. I want to know. I don't understand why this one wants to know so bad, but Jack is like, all right, fine, I'll tell you. It's Diane Jenkins. Now, after a good 2 minutes of her sitting there saying, well, I don't believe it. Okay, they're punking you. After he explains, she's like, "Well, I want to go and see it for myself." She just goes upstairs, and Phyllis is kind of just like standing there, like standing in front of her. I'm like, "What is that gonna do?" And then she walks up and she sees her, and she has the classic soap opera stare. You know that stare where it's like, but you're trying to be all serious. That stare. I think that's about it for the most part. But what I will sit there and say, the hell is going on with Ashlyn? What is going on with this man? This I don't. I'm lost at this point. Victoria gets into a car crash. I saw a little bit of it of Ashlyn getting damn near second degree burns or whatever, trying to save her. And I was sitting there thinking, well, I mean, if you didn't really love her or anything like that, it's just okay. Maybe here's the thing: if this is a con, it doesn't doubt his love for her because he literally, like, for people sitting there saying, oh, well, he doesn't really love her. He was just after her money and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, that might have been the case in the beginning. There's still no proof, but whatever. But you can't sit there and say that he did not love her to sit there and risk burns and probably the car blowing up or whatever to save her. Um, Now, I didn't really watch last week's, and I'm kind of upset about that, even though I had to wake up, well, hella early. I really did want to at least watch it so I can keep up with what's going on. Um, because there's some people that's well, at the very least they got to sit there and be grateful for him doing that because he didn't have to do that. So it's definitely interesting. Definitely interesting. I am definitely looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. and I'm gonna sit there and try to do these reviews as much as possible. Um, let's double check my notes. Oh, and Kyle is back in Genoa City with his daughter. I guess they went to the Abbott's house, and well, no one's there because they're too busy trying to stop Diane Jenkins from leaving the hotel like she is a prisoner, and they are the wardens. I just watching that whole scene. I was like, what are y'all doing? What is your goal? I mean, yeah, I feel like that's about it. So with that being said, I'm gonna go. I want to thank you for watching. Be safe. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.